Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Korra news update video slash speculation video going into beginnings part 1 and part 2, which are obviously going to air this Friday. So I'll get straight into the news that we have, and really there's only one piece of news, though I suppose there's a second, but that's linked into beginnings. First piece of news is basically that we have the ratings for episode 6, The Sting, obviously last week's episode. And obviously the week beforehand, Peacekeepers, we got 1.18 million viewers, which was the lowest ever for Korra. But that was obviously I've said obviously so many times already, but that was the week after the time change, so that was expected. Just a big drop just because the first time of that time slot. This was the second week, and as expected, it went back up, and it went back up by a pretty big margin. Didn't quite get back to what it was beforehand, but it's still a good increase from 1.18 to 1.98, so just about 2 million, which is good. And now I see a lot of people out there when they report on this saying that it's really bad. It's the show's flopping. It's getting 1.98. That's terrible. But if you actually look at the breakdown of all the ratings on Friday nights, you'll see that it's not too bad. Once it keeps this time slot going forward, it'll obviously go up and probably get up to around that 2.38, I think is the highest for a single episode of Korra this season or something like that. I think the premiere got like 2.58 or something. That would be what you'd be kind of aiming for to have, but that's probably not going to happen at this stage until like near the end of the season. But SmackDown, WWE SmackDown, which is basically one of the longest running weekly television shows of all time, has a huge fan base. If you ever look at WWE's like Twitter, Facebook accounts, you'll see they're massive. They're just insane numbers. So that show's expected to get insane numbers too. That gets about 2.7 million, and it wins Friday night basically every week. In second place is usually like college football or something like that with like 2.3 or 4. But yeah, so Korra has actually come like second, I think once this during this book too. It's not doing bad at all. 1.98 is not flopping on TV. It's just, yes, Nickelodeon have messed around with the time slot, and that's led to some lower ratings. But Nickelodeon are not going to cancel the show after expected low ratings, after they changed the time. They caused the low ratings themselves, and they're aware of that, obviously. I think that basically the reason they changed the time was to give for a arguably better time slot. Like, it has more potential to get people viewing it. So don't worry at all about the ratings. It's actually going to be interesting for Beginnings, which is kind of the second piece of news. Beginnings, the two-parter, actually starts at 8 p.m. instead of half 8 p.m. So basically the reason that they've gone forward one instead of like back one and ending in half 9 is because I think Nickelodeon usually do this thing called Nick at Night or something, Nick After Dark or something like that at 9. So that's something they do like every night. So they're not gonna switch that for any show, regardless of what it is. So instead they go back one and starts it at 8. So it's technically not really a time slot change, and given that it is a two-parter, it'll get ratings as like a chunk. So people will tune into Korra at half 8, even if they're not aware of it starting at 8, and it's still probably going to get high ratings, pretty high ratings. So I'd expect maybe close to 2.5 or something like that this week for Beginnings Part 1 and 2. So just remember that it starts half an hour earlier because it's a two-parter. We're getting both episodes. I suppose I'll cover some of the New York Comic Con stuff as well. Mainly what came out of New York Comic Con was, outside of them airing Beginnings Part 1, there's leaks up online if you want to see that before Friday, but at this stage it's probably like worth just waiting, see it in good quality. Basically what happened was that they just had a Q&A with the voice actors. Nothing incredibly new was revealed, but the big piece of news would be that they did this thing, basically how they went through the full process of how they made about a 20-second scene from episode 10, A New Spiritual Age, with Korra and Jinora in the spirit world. So This basically tells us that Korra Jinora Spirit World stuff in the trailer happens in episode 10, and I think it also hints that it also happens a little bit in episode 9. So just that was the main piece of news, that Spirit World stuff starts episode 9, the guide, and a new spiritual aid episode 10. So that was the main piece of news. Other than that, really there wasn't much else. It was definitely one of those panels where like it was all really about how being there. There are videos of that up online. I'll actually link you to Kelly, who was at the panel. She recorded that sort of stuff, so I'll link to her video in the description, and you can watch that presentation about how they make a couple of seconds of the show. It's actually really interesting, and I hope they put it up on like a DVD in like full quality, because it's really interesting to see the exact process for how the show's made. I knew a lot of it, but like some of the order stuff, I was definitely surprised at. Like that, basically, the dialogue happens before any sort of kind of like animation is done at all. Not even storyboards and stuff like that. It's literally just a script by the time they do the dialogue. So that was surprising to me, but it's interesting. Check out the description. Getting into some speculation now on beginnings. Since I've seen the leak of Beginnings, I saw it like the day it came out, which was the day after the Sting, so it was like right there. Didn't want to wait the full like 6 days. I can't really speculate too much on Beginnings Part 1, and I can't do Part 2 because I'd have to spoil some stuff about Part 1. So instead, really, all I can do is to talk about the importance of these 2 episodes. I'm going to try and spoil as little as possible here, but just that what these 2 episodes are going to cover is so important, and like it's going to be pretty mind-blowing, I think, to any fans of the Avatar world, Avatar mythology, simply because this will be the biggest change we've ever got in the show. Like, going 70 years on from Avatar The Last Airbender was a big change. Seeing like a lot of technology was really interesting, and it was a big change. But now we're going 10,000 years back to where there's basically no technology. It's the era before the Avatar, so the Avatar doesn't even exist. We're going to see how the Avatar comes into existence, and that brings into play a lot of stuff, like what's bending like at this time, because the lion turtle in Avatar says, in the era before the Avatar, we bent not the elements but the energy within. So, there's the whole thing of like, where does energy bending come into play? That suggests that lion turtles are around at this point in time. It also suggests some stuff like, okay, we know the origins of all of the 4 elements, that the first firebenders to firebend were the ancient sun warriors, and they learned from the dragons. The first air nomads learned from the sky bison. The first waterbenders learned from the push and pull of the tides. And first earthbenders, Oma and Shu, learned from the badger moles. So there's the origin of bending as we know it, and just like, so does this mean that in this time they've just learned how to bend, those people? Has that not happened yet, or stuff like that? A lot of interesting stuff is going to be revealed, and it could potentially like really change how we view the Avatar, depending on how exactly that comes into being, what the inauguration kind of role was, like how the powers came to be and all this sort of stuff. It's pretty crazy when you really get down to it, and that we're gonna like, it's gonna change how we kind of really consider a lot of stuff. Bending, energy bending, Avatar spirits, spirit world itself. Like, why have they always been separate? That sort of stuff. It's fascinating to me, and I just can't wait to see them in like Part 1 in good quality, and then just to see what happens in Part 2 to set up obviously what Korra is going to have to learn. I suppose the only thing I can really speculate on is what was set up in the last episode, which at this stage doesn't look like it's going to be coming back until around episode 9 or 10, the whole Mako thing, because I can tell you right now that Mako, Bolin, Varric, they're not in this Beginnings Part 1 at least. We see Korra for the first few minutes, and then it's all Wan, and ends with a cliffhanger in Wan's story, setting up the Part 2 to continue it. So more than likely he's not going to come back. That whole cliffhanger with Varric, Mako needing to get proof about him, that's not going to come back for a while now. So, what do I think is going to happen here? Um, well, I think this is the point where you have to bring Lin back into things. You have to finally have Lin starting to believe Mako again. I think that's really crucial. That's a really crucial thing to happen. Um, if they don't do it that way and have Mako do it on his own, there definitely needs to come a point where Lin does apologise for the way she's been treating Mako and not listening to him when he's basically solved most of it by himself. Um, we're gonna, I think, get some more emotional stuff with Asami. Not the relationships, you have just her dealing with the fact that Varric's probably gonna take over some stuff in a bad way now that he has control over her company. Um, Mako trying to prove that Varric is now kind of bad is obviously going to affect his relationship with Bolin, because Bolin kind of has Varric as a mentor at this stage. So how's that going to affect things? Like, if Bolin finds out that Varric's also bad, given what's happened, like, is he going to stick to the acting and maybe try and do it without Varric because he is the star? I think that could come into a play, that Varric is trying to use Bolin as his kind of mouthpiece to get like more political stuff going on in the city. But if Bolin kind of moves out on his own as like a popular figure without Varric, he could really kind of get things going for good by himself. So Bolin using his celebrity status by himself, thinking himself, could be really interesting way to go with him, because we know he is having a more serious side of his story, and that's definitely coming into play here with him kind of losing himself a bit in his fame, kind of changing his personality a bit. So yeah, that's very interesting to me. A ton of mystery still left open with Unalaq, and I just don't know what they're doing now. Like, we've only had 2 scenes of him in the last 2 episodes, and it's really got the mystery going, because while he was presented as the villain, we all knew that it was going to happen. What we still need to know, and what we've always really wanted to know this season, is what his goal is. Like, what's he working for? Why is he so eager to protect this portal? If his ultimate goal is to link the South and North Poles through this kind of spirit portal, why is he keeping it like away from everyone? Why shouldn't he be letting everyone see this and like, hey, this is the first part of the portal, I'm gonna go to the north and get it open? Like, clearly it's not just this thing that he wants to do to help us out, it's for himself. That's why he's keeping people away from it. Because at the end of the day, if it was all for good, he could have just used the fact that Korra wasn't agreeing to open the northern portal as something against them. Because saying, oh, she's not going to do this and it's going to help you guys, look what she's doing. But that's not happening. Just interesting. And then I think they're definitely setting up something like Desna possibly turning on his own, I keep saying I want to say uncle, but that's Korra, his father, because he seems to be the one reacting the most shocked to discovering all this stuff about his father, while Eska seems to be more just going along with things, still upset about what happened with the wedding with Bolin, and she seems to be somewhat jealous or angry at Korra, which is interesting. And it's obviously the thing of like, when they told him that, as far as they knew, that Korra was dead, eaten by a spirit, he didn't really react to it. He was angry before they said it, and was just remained angry afterwards. So, does he know what happens when you get like hit by a spirit, or does he actually like fear that she's gone and his plan is gone? Ultimately, I think they're going to have to fairly soon reveal his full goals, and probably that he's working in some way for the spirits or some spirit. Probably this may be where we get revealed the Grey Delisle voiced dark spirit at some point. But yeah, that's about all I wanted to say. As for how Mako tries to prove Varric is behind all this, well, he has evidence now that the detonator from the crime scene is the same as the one on Varric's movie set, but that could possibly be explained away by like it was like an illegal sale of it or something like that. So I don't think that's like 100% proof, though it is good. I think it could be something like Mako has to ask Bolin to maybe spy on Varric because he's kind of like insider knowledge or something like that. That leads to distrust. Maybe Bolin eventually goes through with it against like his own best interest and discovers this bad thing, and that's where it happens. Either way, I think there is going to be some conflict between Mako and Bolin over the whole distrust of Varric. But I'm just going to end it here. Definitely let me know in the comments below. How excited are you for Beginnings Part 1 and 2? And what you think is going to happen, I suppose, whenever the Mako kind of Bolin plot returns. So thanks for watching, and bye.